Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first edition of NDT Talks. I am Carrie, and I'm truly excited to be your host for this powerful panel discussion as we dive into the one of the most crucial yet confusing aspects of the NDT world: certifications. Whether you are a student just starting out, a technician aiming for growth, or someone considering a shift into the industry, you are in the right place. Today, we are here to help decode NDT certifications and give you clarity on what truly matters to the employers. And we have a fantastic panel to guide us. Mr. Madhavan Krishnamurthy, manager from Setsko Services, Singapore. With over 40 years in the NDT industry, Mr. Madhavan currently leads the training and certification department at Setsko Services, Singapore. He brings deep expertise across ASNT, BINDT, AWS, and ISO 9712 schemes, backed by a lifelong passion for knowledge sharing and skill development. Mr. Donald Booth, founder and CEO of American Institute of Non-Destructive Testing. Being the founder and CEO of ASNT, Donald Booth brings 19 years of experience and holds 4 ASNT Level 3 certifications. He is a strong advocate of accessible, career-building NDT education and practical learning pathways. Next is Mr. Michael Turnbow, one of the founder member of UGA Technologies and Chief Workforce Officer in USA. Co-founder of UGA Technologies, Mr. Michael has over 30 years of NDT experience, including leadership at TBA and global standardization work through ISO and ASME. He currently chairs the A&D Nuclear Specific Industry Sector Committee and is past ASNT president. Last but not the least, we have Nathan Bay, Chief Examiner of Argyll Ronay, UK. Chief Examiner Nathan is an eye engineering professional with over 14 years of experience and extensive multi-method level 3 certifications. He plays a key role in shaping PCN certification standards and was named BINDT's NDT Engineer of the Year 2023 and 2024. Moderating this powerful panel discussion is none other than Daniel Ho, founder of A Better Inspector. Mr. Daniel brings 15 plus years of inspection experience and currently leads quality assurance at Invista. A champion of NDT 4.0 and modern certification methods, he merges the field experience with digital innovation and advance the future of technical training. So let's get ready to have your questions answered, myth busts, and career paths illuminated. Let's get started. Over to you, Mr. Daniel.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess we can just dive right in. We got a couple of topics we want to cover today, and we'll just take turns answering some questions and see how much we can learn from this discussion. So one of the topics is called opening reflections. So we'll start with Mr. Donald Booth. What was your very first encounter with non-destructive certifications like? Did you walk into it with clarity, or did you feel like it was a maze of acronyms and unknowns? Looking back, what would you have wanted to know at that time?
Well, for me, my experience is I started on the North Slope of Alaska for my career, and they had a pretty tight certification program in place up there. So I had gotten a good education in NDT as well. So when I got into it, I felt I understood the certification requirements. And so I didn't really have an issue with it. We used ASNT TC1A and CP 189, variations of certification. So the theoretical classroom training coupled with the on-the-job training, and then the 3 parts of the exam: the general knowledge, the specific on your procedures, open book, and then the practical. So it was all pretty straightforward for me at that time, but I also wasn't dealing with, PCNs and BINDT and ISO 9712 and different certification schemes. So I was really familiar with what we were going to do.
Yeah, awesome. What about you, Mr. Nathan Bate? Did you feel like you were in over your head whenever you first started, or did everything kind of make sense, or what was your experience like getting involved in NDT?
Similar to Donald, really, but I guess for me it was the other way around. So being UK based predominantly, we do use for general engineering anyway, we use the PCN scheme. So I started as a trainee at an inspection services company with very little knowledge of NDT. So I was very green at the beginning. My first experience was a PT level 2 course for PCN. So yeah, it was. I did feel a little over my head, I guess, when I first started. But you know, for the first 7 or 8 years of my career, I only really knew PCN or ISO 9712. It wasn't till more recently that I started to become involved and need to understand the requirements of SNT, TC1A, CP189, and the ASNT side of things, really. So yeah, it can be confusing when you first start.
Oh yeah, definitely. What was it like whenever you transitioned from the UK to these other standards? Was there a big bridge to gap, or what was the transition like? Was it mainly just acceptance criteria? I mean, the theory should have been the same. I've never been in that position before.
Yeah, so I obviously had a good grounding of knowledge from PCN background, but it was mainly the requirement to do the ASNT NDT level 3 exams, which are you know, the level of knowledge is very in depth for that. So particularly for the basic exam, where you have to cover so many and knowledge of so many NDT methods in order to pass that, some of which were not familiar to me. Things like leak testing, neutron radiography. You know, you have to have that broad knowledge to become a level 3. So that was a big transition. But yeah, the base knowledge is definitely very similar across the schemes.
Okay, nice. How about you, Matt Haven? What was it like whenever you first encountered NDT? Was it confusing, overwhelming? Did you feel confident, comfortable? What was it like for you?
Okay, very good evening to everyone. I think since in Singapore it's 10 p.m., I'm just maybe others, maybe it's good morning to everyone. Okay, can you please repeat the question? Sorry, I was not able to gather the questions actually. Daniel, can you please repeat the question?
Oh, yes, I was just interested in what your first encounter with NDT was like. If you had clarity going into it, was it overwhelming? You know, what would you have wanted to know whenever you first stepped into
Okay.
NDT?
Right. Okay. My career started since 1981, actually almost more than 44 years. After finishing my graduate engineering, actually, I got an opportunity to enter into the structural fabrication industry, wherein actually I was given an opportunity to take this entity as a special task because of overcoming the big project as I held actually at that time. So, yeah, collaboration with the German company. Initially, I started my actually career in India, and later I moved to Middle East, and then now for the past 30 years I settled in Singapore. Over the years, actually, the very first qualification I took actually after training, actually the certification was UT level 2, and I have never come across such a personal actually so far, in the sense why, in the sense actually me being the first one, the maiden one. I was really very attracted towards how he conducted and how he conducted the examination. But he was from crowd crammer, so that was the inspiring for me actually. So from that onwards, actually, I've been changed my direction, not to other avenues of engineering. So stick on to the NDT, and from there I just started my career. Then I know I'm saying a level 3 in 7 methods in across the various schemes, actually ASNT, PCN, ISO 9712. Now I'm handling the training and certification department in Search Services Singapore, and we have been carrying out different type of schemes like ASNT, PCN, and ISO 9712, right? All these things, actually even NAS 410 also. I'm also qualified under NAS 410 to qualify certain methods. So I just traveled actually a long journey in this. I feel that certification is one of the important a credential which is being recognized by the industry for any individual who is performing the testing. Without that, he is not at all considered as an equivalent person. So that creates actually a zoom or a boom for the people to make him as a popular in the industry. And for that, actually, they need to have a lot of background work. But right now, I'm seeing that that is not being there actually. Straight away, they want to go to the highest level immediately after getting certified, which is which is very difficult, and they have to face a lot of hiccups during this journey. Anyhow, during over the coming sessions, I should be able to share certain things. This is my area actually. I'm proud to be an NDT in the field right from starting as a graduate trainee to right now I'm a consultant as well as also a HOD of the certification department. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. So whenever you get certified in a certain method and traveling as much as you have, did you find any kind of disconnect with different governing bodies for people who are certified in one, like ASME, ASNT? If they were certified in that, do you feel like there's any kind of disconnect whenever they go to a different governing body, like the ISO or any kind of other method?
Yes. Yes, actually, when we transfer to the actually from one method, one scheme to the other scheme, actually, because of the industrial demand or the requirement, and especially under ISO 9712 or earlier the PCN EN 0473 last time, there was a big change from ASNT to PCN because we have been also conducting a lot of training, especially the product technology was not in the syllabus for mainly for ASNT. I cannot say abruptly, but because it is in PCN, it is a international qualification. They are considering all the material technology process like casting, forging, welding, everything. Whereas in ASNT, we are considering about the being a in-house actually qualification, and I'm talking about the level 1, level 2. Level 3 is something different, which is a third-party certification or international one. So the level 2 actually they're not being updated about the various products. Once because the certification scheme itself is inherent such that when they move one from company to another company, also automatically their certificates being revoked. So this is one of the inherent thing actually, and practical part of it actually is so stringent in other schemes compared to ASNT or other in-house schemes. Which actually it is very inherent actually in the writing instructions and performing test in all the methods, which is something we have to prepare as an individual who is going for the either ASNT level 2 or PCN level 2. They have to mentally prepare for going with a different type of approach for the examination. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sounds great. How about you, Mr. Mike Turnbow? What was your first encounter like with NDT, back whenever you started? And do you feel like there's any kind of disconnect from going from oil and gas pipeline to your specialty, which is nuclear? What was it like for you whenever you first got involved? And did you feel overwhelmed, or what was your experience like?
Well, I was too young to realize I was overwhelmed, but I was. So when I got out of college, I'm an industrial engineer. I went to work for a company here in Tennessee, no, here in America called Chicago Bridge and Iron, and they're in the business of building pressure vessels. So I got to see exactly what you're talking about, oil and gas, and they also had a department that was starting building reactor vessels for the incoming. It was the build up of all the units we have now were being fabricated in construction back in those days, and I got to be on the front end of that. So it was fun. It was absolutely amazing to get through that. And to get the classroom training courses, not a big problem. To get to OJT, it's always a struggle trying to get the time to get the OJT, which is my issue to this day. And so, like Matt Haven there said, the difference between the ASNT exams and the others, such as PCNs, I ended up being the ISO rep for the United States. So I got to go to all the ISO meetings that was writing the NDE standards, ISO 9712, for about 10 years. And I got to see the John Thompsons. I'm sure Nathan remembers John Thompson and all those guys, and talking about the differences, and there are differences. Now, I'll say this, in my industry, when I finally got through a lot of years of that, I settled in nuclear and been in nuclear for the last, I don't know, 20 years. I was in construction, then I was in fabrication, went to construction, then I ended up at Tennessee Valley Authority in operations. The very things that Matt Hatton was talking about, the differences in how the practical exams are given with TC1A, we had years of struggling with that in nuclear, to the point that we started augmenting the requirements into the ASME code to try to put band-aids on how people weren't really getting a good OJT, good experience, and was not getting good practicals, to the point we put together in 1992, what's called a Performance Demonstration Initiative. And we actually made it requirement, a legal requirement through the NRC. Everybody has to go to EPRI NDE Center in North Carolina and take these tests. Until this day, we still have 50% failure rate. Makes no sense. So with that said, about, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago, some of us broke off and headed down a route to fix that. And so we're involved with ASME to try to address the weaknesses of the practical and the experience side of TC1A and CP189. And I ain't gonna get into it now, obviously, but you'll be hearing about that. And we're using something totally different. It is not anything like you've ever seen before, because it comes from another industry that's successfully implemented, and that's the nuclear power operators, the guys that runs the power plants. We're actually using their program. So it's been a heck of a ride, Daniel. And just to say a little bit more, I guess, in 1977, ASNT offered the first level 3 exams. I took them in Atlanta, Georgia, me and some other friends. We did. And the basic was tough. Matter of fact, all the exams were fairly tough. But we got through them, got the big 4, MT, PT, UTRT, and have been an ASNT level 3 ever since. When I got through with the test, I joined the committee that wrote the exams and did that for 20 years. And now I'm on the ASNT Standards Development Committee, so I'm still involved. Love the place, got to be president of it on a lot of committees. It's been a nice journey, I'll tell you. NDT has been good to me.
Nice. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting conversation coming up in a little bit. Is, you could be at one location and see a lot of good material and get your OJT. You can understand your methods, but it doesn't really mean that you can just go to a refinery that constantly breaks and be expected to find that. So how do you, quantify your OJT and make sure that you're more confident, but being able to ask the questions? I think that's going to be a good conversation coming up also.
Great.
So back to you, Mr. Booth.
Yes,
whenever
sir.
you were starting out and you got your certifications, whether it's UT, MT, PT, RT, how did you decide what your specialty was going to be? Or what were you passionate about? What did you focus in on? And how did you decide to lock into that and keep pursuing? Or was it just more of a broad term because you knew education was in your future? Is that something that you pursued like that? And yeah, how did you hone in on your specialty?
I didn't know, that education was in my future. Okay. I just got into the passion of NDT. And so I was fortunate enough to start on the North Slope of Alaska and start as a radiographer. And I did that for about a year and a half. And then I, got my RT, UT, MT, PT, VT certifications over a few years, right? My first three years or so. And then I was fortunate enough to move into BP Special Projects Department. So I would do all 5 methods daily. I'd run over and do some UT, and I'd always have a camera with me in case they needed me to run somewhere and take a shot, and so that was kind of fun. And then when I was doing all 5 methods, I just kind of thought, I kind of like all of this, right? To stepping back for a moment to Michael's point about OJT, I just wrote an article in Quality Magazine that was published about the difficulties of OJT. So it might be a good read for people. There's a short podcast, but an article about the OJT dilemma and how we address that and how we track it and how we hopefully create some standardization around the industry. But anyway, yeah, I spent 7 years, 8 years up on the North Slope of Alaska, and then decided education is what I really wanted to get into. So it was because I enjoyed having apprentices with me.
Oh,
And so yeah, all 5 methods. I didn't really specialize. I specialized in NDT. Whatever I could learn, not just I want to be a radiographer, I want to be a UT guy. I wanted to know all the methods. And so that was kind of my drive in my career.
what did you think was more difficult out of the certifications you achieved? Me personally, I felt more comfortable in RT, but for some reason, MT, that was more difficult for me to comprehend and understand and pass the level twos with that. And it seems like RT would have been harder. Did you come across any of that? What was your most difficult moment?
You know, I don't, I'm very fortunate. I'm a good test taker. and and so I didn't struggle with really any of the level 1 or level 2 or even the level 3 exams. I always hear it here at the school. People, they call in and say, "Boy, I hear I'm going to start with PT because for my level 3 because that's a little easier than RT." Well, PT is pretty in depth too at the level 3 end of it, right? And if you really want to talk about a difficult one, delve into the basic, where you've got, your manufacturing processes, your metallurgy, your hexagonal lattices, your stress strain curves, and then your CP189, TC1A, and then your 11 or 12 just different NDT methods. That's a big bite. Now, when I got certified level 3, I took my basic in the morning and my MT that afternoon, and just got those first ones out of the way. But no, I've been kind of an all-around NDT guy since the beginning.
Nice. Mr. Nathan Bate, how did you find your right method? Did you find a specialty, just something that you were just really drawn out that you feel like you can teach anybody this one method? And what kind of led you to that over your career?
I think if I had to say what was my favorite NDT method, I think I enjoy UT the most. But I did start out learning to what I would say the basics, so MT, VT, and PT, and I spent probably 5 years on the road delivering those methods to customers on site. And I wanted to get into radiography. I did enjoy it, but it was kind of my employer really at the time that shaped where I went. So the opportunities weren't there at the time to become a radiographer. So I ended up going down the UT route. And again, I like NDT as a whole. I don't dislike radiographic testing. I have an interest in ET as well. But yeah, I think for me it was my employer at the time that shaped where I went. But I was keen to learn all areas of NDT, so I didn't turn down any opportunity. I don't think you can do that in this industry. You've got to be willing to learn a lot. And if you're willing to do that, then you should do well.
Did you find that any method was more difficult than the next? What did you struggle with out of the methods?
I think the theory for electromagnetic testing, or particularly eddy current testing, that was something I found difficult. UT I seem to get on well with. I enjoy UT theory. I think I'm one of the few people that I speak to out of my industry counterparts who really enjoyed the ASNT level 3 UT exam. I had a nice time with it. Not so much with the ET exam. That was pretty difficult. But yeah, I think the electromagnetic theory, I think for me is a real tough one.
How about you, Mr. Matt Haven? How did you find your right method, and how did you hone in on it? And did you find a method that was more difficult than the others?
Okay, I agree with Nathan both. So my experience also in the past 45 years actually is similar to that what he explained. I was more in-depth knowledge in actually in ultrasonic testing, I have level 3 in ASNT, PCN, and PAUT, as well as NASPO 10. But coming back to electromagnetic testing, though we have specialized actually something in tube testing, every tube, because it is when it is in service, actually, once in 3 years we have been doing. Every once in the same tube, after 3 years, actually, we are able to get a different type of thing, because the software also developments are there actually. So the eddy current or RFBT or MFL, whatever we do, actually, depending upon the material, the interpretation actually is there is always, we cannot say that the probability of defect POD is very exactly, or just like our ultrasonic testing. There is always some other factors also which affect our interpretation may not be exactly coincide, because we have a practice in our process industry to validate. Once we find actually the thickness loss is more than 40%, normally they used to pull out the tube and then validate. So there comes actually real acid test for the people who did the interpretation, and we found that actually there is always a lag in that actually, around almost you can say 10 to 15%, either minus or plus, depending upon the nature of the discontinuity. So the electromagnetic testing is every day is a challenge. Actually, we have to be very careful and consider the history of the bundle. And this is not like easy like other test methods like ultrasonic testing, because ultrasonic testing now it's a booming industry in the digitized world, with the software coming up, FMC, PAUT, TOFD, and all. So with this advanced techniques, actually, we could able to exactly pinpoint certain things actually which industry requires. But in the case of electromagnetic testing, even though that eddy current array probes are there, which is having some restrictions in actual in-service bundles to be tested. So there are some hiccups actually there. I find some electromagnetic testing need to be a little bit more from my side. I need to be a little bit research and development has to be done. And we need to focus on such things actually to be more useful service, intended service to the industry, in my point of view. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice. Nice. Mike Turnbow, what tied you into NDT? Which one was your first method? What were you passionate about? And being a nuclear, it seems like you'd kind of lean towards radiography a little bit, right? Or what do you think your specialty is? Mr. Mike Turnbow, you might be on mute.
Yeah, the mic is muted. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry about that. You're absolutely right. Both of them beg special attention, both the UT and the RT. And so, starting off in pressure vessels period, oil patch, petrochemical, moving to nuclear. At the end of the day, if you close your eyes, you wouldn't know what it was. It's still pipes and welds and big thick things, and a lot of NDT, MT, PT, UT, RT. They all got to be done. And so UT, I would say would be my most interested in to start with, because along came some technologies. Phased array, for example, is out there now. It's incredible technology for ultrasonics. And for the organization I work with now, the UGA Technologies, we're shifting back to radiography, because now you got CR, computed radiography, DDR, DF, even scanning film into a digitizer is huge right now. We got so many people. It's got things going on they need help with, and that is fun. That's fun. And so, Daniel, I'd say my one I liked the most, enjoyed the most, was the UT. But I've had to train for years. My early days in training, Tennessee Valley Authority, when we were building the nukes, I think I trained around 500 people in 3 years, and that was to staff for 17 nuclear sites, 17, not units, sites. Each site had at least 2 units. Some had 3 to 4. And so we set up this big organization, and I actually burned out at it. I mean, I did it every day for those 3 years. But MT, PT, UT, RT, visual, and sometimes a little eddy current or whatever else come along. But back in those days is when I got my level 3 and started doing that work. So I like them all, but I'd say my UT.
UT? Nice. Did you feel that any of your RT training kind of rolled over into operations whenever it comes to radiation safety? Did you play a big part in that atmosphere?
Oh, absolutely. I should have mentioned that the RT is where the radiation safety is where RT begs a lot of attention. Particularly in a nuclear power plant, you got two things working against you. You got the plant that's radioactive, and then you're bringing some in to shoot pipes and things. And the big challenge over all these years has been you got to rope off all these areas, and people's got to quit working. So the management and all those folks, the production people, they get real mad at you, and they give you little windows to get your job done. So, you have to plant your feet and say, no, you can't cross that line. We had people crossing lines. They got rode up. It got really bad enough. Some folks were so adamant about crossing our lines, they actually lost their jobs. So there's a lot of that goes on in industry when you're out there doing it. Now, if you're out in the middle of the desert doing a pipeline, it's not quite so bad. But if you're in a plant, it's intense. And the other thing that's happening is as we go to these digital models, such as a CR or DR, the roped off area just drops from 100 feet down to about 10. And now you can do, the shots are quick. They're not 30 minutes, they're seconds. And so that's making RT fun again.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the next question. Back with Mr. Donald Booth. Certified versus qualified. If you had to lean more in one direction, what would it be? How well does it actually line up with the realities of field work? And, what do you prefer? And what do you think the disadvantages are of the other one? And how can we improve that?
So they're really two vastly different things, right? We get calls every day. I'm a little shocked in the industry that I get calls from level twos that don't understand the certification process of how education and OJT together create you're qualified to be certified at that point, right? Once you have the training requirements and the required OJT and all the documentation, now you're finally qualified to be certified, right? And people, I'm still shocked in the industry. When we do, training, we make sure we, listen, you need to understand this certification process. This is your whole career. Don't lose your OJT hours. Don't lose your education certificates. Keep all this in a folder. Keep it organized because that's what you bring company to company, right? Qualified versus certified. Like I said, it's a big difference. And then it goes to that OJT topic that I keep going back to. That's a torch I've been carrying for the last few years is, how, I've talked to so many level twos that call, or supervisors or level threes actually that call and say, I hired a guy that was certified in 3 methods at a different company. He comes over here and he doesn't know how to caloscope, right? Or do some of these other things that we need to do. So what is our OJT? It's not really delineated. I think that's the biggest weakness in the qualification end of it. And then as far as the certification, just depends with SNT. It gives you so much leeway, right? I mean, if, we deal with the manufacturing companies that they just use a D meter to take thickness on some plate as it comes in. Okay, well, should they have to know shear wave? Should they have to be certified to the highest level? Well, not if they're going to just do that, right? So the certification end, I like SNT for those reasons, but I also like the other schemes for, forgings, castings, the different modalities of manufacturing. One of the most important things for everybody listening here, and what I tell every student, is when you walk up to a part or an item to do the inspection, ask yourself how it was made. How was it made? Was it rolled? Was it forged? Was it cast? Was it plate before it became a pipe? Is there a long seam in it, right? So once you know how a part was made, you can at least start to understand what discontinuities may be there from the manufacturing process. And then also ask yourself, what is this part doing? Is it high velocity? Is it high heat? Is it cyclical fatigue? Can you put your hand on it and it's vibrating? you know, and then now you know what its life is like. Is there thermal fatigue? Does it start at 100 degrees and go up to 300 degrees? Some of those things. And I think in the other schemes, they get a little deeper. Well, I know they get a little deeper into the different, you know, forging, castings, and so forth in the certification. So once again, I just feel the qualification is, and that's where I spend most of my life, right? Is making sure people are properly educated, and then the OJT's on the company, and then they're qualified to be certified.
Yeah, sounds great. What about Nathan Bay? What are your thoughts on the certification versus job requirements, and uh, how do you feel that there's a little bit of a disconnect? And alternatively, like if you have somebody that's certified and qualified for the oil and gas industry, like how do you think that they would actually bridge that gap just immediately going to aerospace? So just shed a little bit of light on that, please.
Yeah, you've brought up quite a poignant topic there. So there are significant differences between oil and gas and aerospace, and in terms of the certification. So oil and gas, particularly here in the UK, will mandate PCN certification, whereas aerospace will be near enough 99% of the time EM4179. So the big difference between those two is that EM4179 or NAS 410 is similar to SNT TC1A, and it's an employer-based certification program. So the onus within that is on the employer and the NDT level 3 within that business. So you are qualified, you get your OJT, you take your examination, you do your training course, you show your experience. It's then down to your employer to issue you that certification. The difference that you find between aero and oil and gas is if you're using a PCN certification, which is what I deal with on a day-to-day basis, working for a BINDT approved training organization and qualifying body, is that the employer doesn't issue certification. You get your certification from BINDT or PCN. You do your OJT with your employer. So you present that on what we call a PSL 30 document. So it's essentially it's just a form you fill in. It's an OJT log, so it's an hours log. You would go to an ATO, such as the company I work for, to carry out an approved training course. So you have satisfied the training hours, and then you take your examination, which the requirements of that are set by BINDT. We administer the exam. We issue you with an examination result. Should you pass the exam, complete the training, and have the necessary OJT required for that method, you should, requiring you meet all the other criteria, be certified by PCN. Even when you have that certification, it then sort of bats the ball back into the employer's part of it. Even if you've got a list of PCN certifications that travel with you throughout your career, so if they don't terminate when you leave an employer, they are your certifications. You still have to have written authorization from any employer that you work for, that they authorize you to carry out NDT on their behalf. So just because you have 20 PCN certifications on a big long list, you still have to satisfy employer requirements. So that's the difference in the way you are qualified. So qualification for me is everything that the OJT, the training, the exam, everything that puts you right on the edge of certification. Certification is really just written testimony of that level of qualification, and it's who that comes from. That written testimony, who that comes from, is the main difference between an employer-based and a centrally certified scheme.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, personally, I'm a fan of the ISQ, the third party and certification process on it. In my history, we had a couple of people that were UT certified based on the employer, but they couldn't pass the ISQ. And the ISQ wasn't anything too difficult. And if you know your stuff, I don't see how you could fail it, but it was a little bit of an issue. We had people out there doing UTs for years and they couldn't pass the basic ISQ exam. So I'm a big fan of third party. I really like that. What about you, Matt Haven? How do you feel about the certifications versus actual OJT being in the field, practical knowledge, and do you see any kind of disconnect and what you think could be improved?
Okay. They actually, in my point of view, in my past experience, actually, there is most important thing is the OJT is the very important, significant. Actually, it makes a lot of difference. Actually, after I mean, my past 30 years in Singapore, actually, what we established in the industry is, even though the person is qualified, certified, but before you going into the thing, actually, the stakeholders, they want to verify whether this concerned people have good experience in this particular reduction of certain discontinuities. They always conduct a mock test apart, keeping apart whatever the certification you have, right? So this is one of the important requirement. Actually, now the industry is now building up. Whether you have a ASNT or PCN, yes, yeah, they will always also divide this important job, criticality jobs they will give to PCN people. But apart from that, prior to going for example, I'm taking a shutdown or any project or something like that, when they want to certify the people, identify and select the people, they will go for mock-up test. The mock-up test actually is a resemblance of what is a critical component and what is the expected discontinuity in that. That is going to be the deciding factor to accept that personnel for that particular performing the test. So this is one of the important requirement. And this actually OJT, without OJT, this actually even as referred by Nathan, actually the EN 4179, I feel among the various the schemes, actually they have a good scheme of logging hours for the experience, OJT experience, which is actually I'm talking about in Singapore and Southeast Asia region, which is another region. I'm not sure what's the practice being followed. The document being given for as an experience, it is being signed by a responsible level 3 as saying that, hey, my staff has been qualified and so many hours since we joined. Actually, he has been doing this, but that is a void there. Actually, there's a gap there. When we are coming for the practical sessions, we could able to see there's a big gap actually where you're not able to minimum certain things also they're not able to, even some certain calibrations also they're not able to do that. So especially in EN 4179, even though there is for example ultrasonic testing, they have a specific task actually. It's not like other industry. Yeah. So EN 4179 actually, because as you said, actually it is being in-house. Even though why I'm telling this point actually is other industry also, if they practice this OJT in clocking hours, right? Because nowadays all the certification scheme requirement they gain experience actually. Experience instead of just simply accepting as a third party certification body, we are relying completely on the documents what is being given by the company, right? Management. The management also should take responsibility in all these things actually to build up the procedure in how to clock this hours, OJT hours for the individual people to, because this is a big gap actually there when they go for, as soon as they get certified or something like that, when they go for a job, I think they were not able to get fulfill the minimum requirement of what the stakeholders require. There is a gap, I feel so, in my experience, I'm telling. So especially detection of crack, hydrogen-induced cracks, and other things, actually, it is not an easy job, right? So unless a person is having good experience on that, then only he will be able to do that. So unless he's having credential, hey, I'm having a level 2 for the past 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, whatever it is, he's going there and then he could not able to fulfill minimum requirement. And this is this big failure on this expectation of the customers. This is actually one of the things actually we need to address as a whole thing actually we how to gain this OJT individually in a proper manner, so effectively. So it is not that just to meet the document requirement, just to give a certificate saying that he is certified. The management also should take responsibility in this. This is my point of view.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a better way of quantifying and qualifying the actual OJT. We have some people that go out on job sites and it's a X-ray job. They sit out there for 12 hours waiting on the well, but their helper charges the full 12 hours, but he's not actually gaining that knowledge. And if they were to just write down the 2 hours they actually did their RT, it's going to take them forever to get their OJT. So how do you actually, add that quality to OJT, make it real based OJT so you can actually reduce your numbers and actually still have your, being able to qualify your personnel instead of just charging hours in the long game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. Mr. Mike Turnbow, how do you feel about the certification process, and where do you feel like it can be improved as far as OJT and you know, just real OJT versus just getting your hours and getting certified? And
Well, obviously there's a common thread here. We're all concerned about the OJT, and I'm going to use my industry as an example because our book is open to the public because we have a regulator, the NRC. Everything happens in our power plants immediately hits the newspapers. Everybody knows when we have an NDE failure. So since TC1A was published in 68, 71, the Pressure Vessel Research Committee did a study. After that, there was like 10 other studies. EPRI, Pacific Northwest Labs, the NRC, PISC 1, 2, and 3 from Europe, the PANI report. The British Institute was involved in the PANI report in the UK. All of them put together in one report by EPRI. Every one of these reports, this is amazing, came back and said when they give the folks, these qualified, certified people, blocks with real flaws in them, represent the real components they work on every day, they found half of them. You hear what I'm telling you? Half of them. So over the years, we had in the nuclear plants all kinds of pipes, degradation mechanisms, intergranular stress corrosion cracking in 82, stress corrosion cracking in steam generators, and also in the 2000s, it hit us in Inconel piping, the huge pipes, very important pipes, and it wore us out through 2000, 2005. And towards the end of that decade, I chaired the EPRI NDE Center. Us guys got together and said, we got to do something. So I'm going to fast forward to you on what we've done. We looked at all the possibilities of how could we fix that system, time-based. We've all using TC1A. The whole world was using something that looked like TC1A. PCN's EN473, EN473, 97. It don't matter what you look at it. You put them side by side. They're different. Some's better than others, but the model is the same. What we came up with, we knew we had a failure in 1979 at 3 Mile Island. So it's called INPO, Institute for Nuclear Power Operations, got together, fixed that problem. They found the best training program known to man, which is called SAT, Systematic Approach to Training. Came out of World War II. We couldn't build planes and get them off the ground or get production out the back door. So these people got together and came up with this system. It's only 5 steps. But the one key in it that I'm going to tell you what you guys have been asking for, and Daniel, you just said, what would you do different? We took time. The INPO people came and told us how they taught the operators. We said, how much time for each one of these steps? And I asked that about 3 times, and the INPO guy running our meeting said, Turnbow, if you say that again, I'm going to kick you out of the meeting. There is no time. So I got it. So what do you replace time with? He says, you demonstrate. It's a qual card, qualification card. You get all your 3s together and you go through a method and you line up all the things you think somebody should know before you certify them. You want to qualify them on each one of these line items. It ends up being 4 or 5 pages of stuff. But did you know what, gentlemen? You can get through that qual for ultrasonics or radiography in about a month, not 12 months. Y'all know it takes 12 months to get OJT because it's a requirement, time. We've practiced, we've done it, we've got people through it. It's a little hard to get it in a month, but for a fairly sharp dude, it's not a problem. Another dude might take 2 months. Think about it. And when you give them a test, we send them to EPRI to take those tests they're failing. They pass it 85 to 90%. So my industry has gone nuts because of the money we've wasted, the failures we've had, the lost revenues from plants being taken offline. Division 2 of Section 11 is for the new advanced reactors, which everybody's quivering over and looking forward to build. I'm here to tell you there is no TC1A or CP189 option in that ASME code. It doesn't exist. It's the ASME ANDI-1 that has the qual cards. And the guys that built that code had been using qual cards all their life. And when we went to them and told them what we was doing, they're saying, I have to have that. And it's in there. It's approved. The NRC's got it, and they're putting it in their regulation as we speak. So I'm excited, obviously. I'm excited about this because all my life with you guys too, the one thing that I never could get over, and it's because I was in the forest and couldn't see the trees. Me and all my friends on all these ASNT, ASNT committees. And finally, when we peaked out in the 2000s with all those failures, our management came to us and says, "You guys ain't worth your salt. Do something." And that's what we did.
Yeah,
That's my story, and I'm gonna stick with it.
that's quite a story, especially for the nuclear side of things. That it's still a problem, and it's not just pipeline to where it's just one common thing. To some people just switching over to aerospace. It's a little more complicated than being certified to do a PT on a weld on a pipeline with 1104. So I guess go ahead.
I was just going to say definitely, and you said nuclear. Obviously, when we built this, we talked. We knew it was doing nuclear because we had that problem. But we also have in power plants non-nuclear components, APIs. We have all kinds of other things. And then the API guys come around and looking at what we're doing, and they're saying, "Golly, Mike, we test all these, like some of you folks have said, in the petrochemical world, they test people going in their shops and in their projects with demos. They don't trust the cert." And my finale answer here is nobody trusts the cert. The cert's a piece of paper. You got to show me you know what you're doing when you come in my place. And with the EPRI thing, I don't get anybody that hasn't showed that they know what they're doing. When they show up at my door, I know they know what they can calibrate and they can find flaws.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess to kind of piggyback off of that one, since we're talking about the nuclear and some unsettling things, we'll start with Donald Booth again. Talking about practically sound and field readiness. Have you ever came across somebody in the field, whether it be your own employee or somebody else for a different company, that shouldn't have been there? And it's a scary situation when you have somebody certified out there making these calls, making these decisions, signing their name, and leaving at the end of the day. It's an unsettling feeling. And have you been encountered in that situation? We got people in the chat also that feel the same way. They show up and there's somebody that should not be there. How did you approach it, and how would you suggest other people approach it?
So what drove me to get into the education sector is that I was a mentor, right? I was mentoring people in the field, and I would get this trainee or apprentice, and they'd show up and say, "Hey, just got back from my 80 hours of UT training." I'm like, "Hey, great, let's we're going to be scanning some pipes for corrosion here. Why don't you get a second scope caled up, just thickness on the two step and the four step. Let's we got 380 360 pipe wall, and just cal it up." And they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that." And I thought, you just left an 80-hour training course. You'd think you'd be able to at least do a thickness cal. And so then I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I was really passionate about it. And that's how I got into the school. As far as people not knowing what they're doing and they shouldn't be there, I think it all comes back to what Michael was even talking about. And I love what he said there. It's not time, it's demonstration. And I've been carrying this torch and preaching this for a while, is like, we need a competency checklist. We need now in ultrasound, is if you're a tanky or you're a pressure vessel guy, and then you go to aerospace, is your OJT going to make you just flawlessly move to that other vertical? No. But if we can identify common threads in each method that spanned the industry, and we can at least demonstrate the quality in the demonstration of their ability in those common threads, then when they do move to another vertical, it's less retraining. Or just, hey, now we're getting into aerospace, and oh, it looks like you're competent in all these things. Great. But there's a few things you need to learn in aerospace or in pressure vessels or in tanks or in whatever it may be, right? So as far as people not knowing, what they're doing, I believe there's always somebody who maybe gets into the career and doesn't care that much. They're just looking for a job. I tell people you need a passion to understand what you're doing, and you need to, when you walk into a facility, ask the operator, what's that big thing do? You know, what's that piece of equipment do? Operators like to talk about what they're managing, and you know, does that thing cycle? What temperatures that cycle to? And you know, just get to know, have that passion. And I blame the companies in our system for leaving some people blind. You know, because we get them the education, and you know, I feel my level threes were, you know, pretty easy because I spent so much time doing RT, UT, MT, PT, VT, and I understood the deep theory, right? And I think that education part is so important, but I only get them for 80 hours, right? And then there's, let's say, 840 hours of OJT. So what is that ethereal OJT we have? There's really no standardization or direction for people. So I think it's somewhat the company and the industry's fault that we haven't put together the right mechanism to help people demonstrate their abilities as they move into certification. If you get a good education and you get OJT and you have a passion for it, you should be fine. So, yeah, I've run into a few people that maybe shouldn't have been there, but I think partially either they had a bad attitude and then that's their fault, or they were just kind of left hanging by, here, carry my couplant, carry the camera. When I trained people, I always got a second scope. I would, you know, have them either go before me and mark what they found, and then I'd follow it up, or vice versa, and really get them interacting. And that's been a battle in our industry because people say, oh, the company, they don't want to pay for a trainee, you know, or a helper. Well, you know, the electricians and the HVACs and the plumbers, they all have apprentices, and they all have to be paid to go do the job while they're coming up in the industry, right? So I think it's a flaw that our industry has called people trainees and helpers. I think we need to call them what they are, apprentices, and then give them the structure to be an apprentice. That way, the mentor, and not everyone should be a mentor. I mean, some people I've met level threes that are amazing. Probably some of the people sitting here that know so much more than me. And and then there's level threes that can do so much in procedures and certification and in-depth knowledge, but they can't transfer that knowledge to somebody. They just don't have that skill set. So how do we identify the proper mentors? Then how do we really reorganize our OJT to deliver the competencies that we need to have an easier flow from different verticals?
Yeah, I agree. You have to build that passion for what you're actually doing and being able to instill that in uh, new technicians, helpers, and even kids. And it's funny that you mentioned that. Is I tell my son also, he's 11 now, but when he was 10 years old, he's asking me what I did for a living, and I tell him I'm pretty much like a plant investigator. We go out, we find these issues, and we, you know, submit it to the plant and try to hold them accountable. At the end of the day, the owner user can accept that responsibility. You know, here in the U.S., I don't know about other countries, but whenever I told him I'm a plant investigator, we find issues, and he's like, "That's really neat." And he's like, "And it keeps people safe." I'm like, "Yeah, that's it." And then next thing you know, he's in a virtual reality world, cranking out an X-ray source and developing film. You know, he's got that passion, he's got that interest in it, and he's tagged along with a free open house events where they're doing eddy current training, and he's got hours in it. And he's 11 now, and he's got more eddy current hours than I do because he shows up and participates, and he has that passion, he has that interest. And you know, you got to instill that into people, whether they're new to the industry coming up, and you know, you got to be able to pursue that passion and instill it in people so they can actually want to learn more and do the right thing. So I think that's pretty interesting. Uh, Mr. Nathan Bate, have you encountered anybody that probably shouldn't have been in that situation, that could have used a mentor, could have used better training, whether it was somebody that worked for you, with you, a different company? How did you handle that situation? And you know, what can you see? What can you tell these other people that seen people that should not be certified in the field, but they need to be able to approach and help and mentor, or make the situation better and get that person removed? Have you encountered anything like that?
The answer to that question is yes. I have come across several scenarios the guys that hold certification. I remember one particular scenario. It was RT. I mean, I'm not an experienced radiographer. I don't hold radiography certification, but this guy called me in to take a look at a radiograph and get my opinion on it as the technical manager of the company. And even I could see as a untrained eye, if you want to call it that, what he should have been seeing, and you could tell straight away that the guy just wasn't competent, and we had to just remove him from the job essentially and say, no, you are not operating, and really there was a flaw in the company's approach. I think that he wasn't asked to demonstrate, and he was allowed to operate based on the cert. Like I say, we don't trust the cert. So I think there was a lesson to be learned there in that scenario. But yeah, he was removed from. You have to tell these guys to take a step back and just say, look, you can't operate, and it comes back to that written operating authorization or company approval. It doesn't matter what you've got on a piece of paper. You need to have that approval from the company that you're working for, and it's their responsibility. I think a lot of companies fall down on that they don't. They often seem to think that just because they've got that piece of paper that they're ready to go, and they should be doing more. Every company, I think, should be doing more to make sure that they, as the company, have the final say on whether that person is authorized to operate, and otherwise they shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, integrity is being able to stop the person, but humility plays a big part in being able to accept that somebody doesn't feel that you're ready and confident for that type of test that you're doing. So taking a step back from both people and reevaluating the situation can, really help out with a lot of people. What about you, Matt Haven? Have you came across anybody that probably shouldn't have been in the field, and how did you handle that situation, and how can you guide other people listening to be able to stand up and actually say it, but also fix the situation professionally?
Okay. In my experience, actually, especially in radiography, in especially late 80s and early 90s, radiography was the important testing method to have a permanent record for most of the joints, well joints, and especially in the sites, construction sites. So where actually it is need to be done, and the professional engineer actually demands actually this need to be done. But sometimes actually, I am a consultant for that company and that company at that time. So I was being a third party, and I was looking for certain all the NDT methods. So one of the subcontractor, so he was given the task for doing this radiography, and it seems to be that out of 100 or 190 radiographs. So I find that more 10 to 15% of the radiograph was similar when I reviewed that actually. So then I got a doubt, and then I have proved that actually it was not on the particular joint by verifying with the surface visually. And then there's I challenged actually these people, and then later they accept that they are fault actually. Because at the night time, because he is having sick or something like that, he could not able to go up. These things actually, yes, they can tell many things, but we cannot accept these things. Actually, then this fellow was immediately removed from it, and then even from the company also, he revoked his certificate, and then he was sent back to his home country. Though this has happened actually by a very big jolt to the company, and it happens actually, it is delayed actually for almost 2 weeks, such and delay that, and to properly shoot and witness and other things to regain the confidence on these people. This has become one of the important thing, and then next also the project actually they put as a ITP, in the sense in the inspection test plan. So certain percentage of NDT need to be witnessed by a consultant or third party. This has become a very important document actually for them actually to make a verification of that particular thing. So this is one of them experience actually had. And apart from that actually, the main important thing is the request actually being given by these people, because I'm representing a third party company. And when our people or somebody going for testing, they should have all the information about the job before on hand, actually, prior to go to the site. Okay, so otherwise, failing which actually for them, every material and every thickness is going to be the same for them. They just do their normal job and then come back. But as actually the requester also must give the information fully, and the people who are going accepting the job also must get all the information in advance and make the full effort to the people who are going there to fulfill the immediate requirement or the particular joints or what has to be done. So this is one of the important thing actually what I had experienced actually in my specifically I have to say this actually. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Mike Turnbow, have you ever came across somebody in the field, and how did you handle that situation to, make sure we actually get good integrity in the field and mechanical integrity in the parts? Have you come across this, and what was your situation like?
Well, I'll tell you what, as a person on the owner side of a utility, bringing in hundreds of people to do outages in all these different nuke plants, my group even did the fossils, the hydros, the gas turbines. There's 139 of us running all over the Tennessee Valley doing all that. Did we ever see anything like it? I could almost say every day, somewhere every day. It was incredible. The worst things was in the early days before there was an EPRI qual. We evolved into doing our own come in and show me thing. We'd look at the paper. Paper's always nice. Send the guys back to the lab, have blocks laid out for everything. And first time I did it, we had a 80% failure rate. And I'm ready for an outage, and I just failed 80% of my contractors. So needless to say, my vendor jumped through a hoop, and we got through that. But the next time I told him, if you bring those people in and they fail this test, I'm not paying mobilization fees. You'll lead them. Okay. Next time pass rate went to 80. It flipped. And so things like that, everything these gentlemen are talking about is happening out there to all of us. And if you don't do the demonstration thing, you're going to get burned in a minute. I won't get in no commercial here. I'll just say, since I left Tennessee Valley, I retired from them a few years back. And I was hired. You got the pressure equipment directive going on in Europe some years. And I've been hired by the British Institute. I even worked for them 3 years, running around North America, doing audits in shops, pressure vessel shops. And the worst thing that ever happened to me is a UT guy can't calibrate. What? He's been working for 5 years, level 2. And you're telling me this? I can't get. I wait an hour, 2 hours. He's nervous. I said, okay, let's do lunch. Come back. I'm sure he'll be fine. Nope, never could calibrate. That's just one example. I had people that couldn't get through a PT test, didn't know how to blow the powder off a mag particle test. They blowed it with their mouth and spitting all over it, and little bubbles of particle stuff hanging there like it's, porosity or something. I've seen it all, and the only way to stop that, and we've been through all that. I told you the nuclear story, and we're coming out the other end looking pretty good that we're getting control of it. And that is, you can't touch anything on a nuclear plant till you show us you know what you're doing. I don't care what your paperwork says. I want your paperwork, and I have to have your paperwork because the NRC makes me give them the paperwork. But if you're going to touch my power plant, you're going to show me you know what you're doing.
Yeah, sounds great. So we'll kind of dive a little deeper into these situations and talk about mentorship. It often plays a critical role in anybody coming up trying to learn. We'll start with Donald Booth again. Can you share a story about how a mentor shaped who you are today? And if somebody wanted to be a better mentor today, what advice could you give them to better shape the future of inspectors?
I've had some good mentors throughout the years. There was a gentleman when I got into API as a tank inspector. He was my mentor, and I passed my API 653, but did I really know everything? No, I don't think you ever know everything in this career. And I think if you claim to know everything, that's a red flag. But this guy, no one else really liked to work with because he was the kind of guy that we'd be driving down the road, and if we saw a 200-pound gold nugget, And I said, look at that gold nugget. He'd say, don't pick that up. You'll just hurt your back. You know, it's just everything was negative. But boy, was he a good mentor. When I could get past that grouchy old exterior, he was willing to answer the questions. Why does this happen? What is this? Why is this? You know, what should I be looking for here? And he was a great mentor. And another mentor, though, kind of on the other side of it, I would ask him, "Hey, what about this venting, emergency venting for this tank?" And finally, he just said, "Open the code, open it, find it." And he said, "You know why I know the answer? I could tell you right now. I could tell you what section it's in, probably what page it's on, because I spend the time in there looking these things up." He goes, "So go to the code, open it up, open up 653, find it. If you really can't find it, come back to me and I'll help you." But that was a good mentor too. Just go do it. You know, if you want to be me and want to learn what I do, I'm not going to just feed you. It's like teach a man to fish, right? And they'll eat forever. But if I just keep giving you the answers, I'm never going to learn. So as a mentor, you want to have compassion. You want to have some patience because this person is new in the career, and you have to look a little more introspectively to yourself and say, what did I feel like the first month when I really didn't know a whole lot? You know, I had my education, now I'm in the field and I'm excited and I'm nervous. And so you have to have some patience. You have to have a little compassion, and you have to have the passion to want to teach. So not everyone is a mentor. I think along with the OJT torch that I've been carrying to try to, you know, bring some clarity to that, is that you can't just throw an apprentice with anyone. We should have a course and a certification for the mentors as well. And you should be able to prove that you can deliver education and make that light bulb come on for people. Right. And so that's my advice. You know, it's not for everyone. And just make sure you know, you're, even if you have a good OJT and a whole good program, if you put them with the wrong person that doesn't want a mentor, it's not going to be there anyway. So, and having that structure, it gives the mentor a structure so they have milestones, so they know they're doing their job properly. And it also gives the trainee or the apprentice milestones that they can be proud to reach and know and control their career and move through with these competencies. So that's what I would say about mentorship is be patient, try to look back and remember your first week in the field or your first month in the field. And just try to make them feel comfortable and try to light that fire in them.
Yeah.
That this is super important what we're doing. There was a guy, one of our customers said he was walking by one of his employees and he was doing Meg and he looked down and he kind of was, I'm just doing this stupid Meg job. And that's what he told his boss. And his boss said, well, you know, that is a hatch to a nuclear sub. So, you know, pretty important. You know, you're not just doing Meg. You're, and that kind of brightened his day, right? He was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, it is important. And yes, it is. Everything we do is important. So that's my take, gentlemen.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I was told years ago there's a difference between an assistant and a mentee. You know, a mentee is going to be hungry and wants to learn and everything else like that. Some assistants are, you know, to put it boldly, it's kind of offensive, but warm bodies. You know, they want that other person there to try to help out, but it doesn't mean that they're actually hungry to learn. And that's the thing that kind of sets them a little bit apart from a mentee. A mentee is going to be hungry. They want to be able to do the work, and yeah, you don't want to just tell them the answer. They need to be able to dive into the book because a lot of the stuff that we have to back it up in black and white. So, yeah, you're right. That's pretty good
Yeah, and there's
information.
right now we don't have an OJT milestone demonstration roadmap that they can go home and say, hey, in the next 30 days, if I get these 5 competencies down, I'm one step closer to being that person. And I think to Michael's thing, I think, I don't know if he said this directly, but it popped into my mind is like, let's get away from the time. if some people can become competent sooner, let's save the industry money and get them out there and get them certed, get them to work.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's all about competency, not time. Now we're just killing time. We're just killing time till we can bill for this person. And it seems complicated. Let's build a roadmap and maybe change the industry and how we look at that.
Yeah, I agree. The NDT 4.0 really needs to take a step back and look at certifying and qualifying these personnel. And I don't feel like it's talked enough about at these panels. So I think that's a really good discussion too. What about you, Nathan Bate? How did you feel with your first mentor? What set them apart from others? What are you doing now to help mentor? And what advice can you give other people?
Well, back when I started, I remember a guy he was a radiographer. This is when it sort of got me interested in radiography, and he was just willing to tell me and show me everything that he knew. And I tend to find if you're looking for a mentor, you'll see two types of people. You'll see the guys that want to show you everything and tell you everything and bring you along and make you into a better technician, engineer, whatever it is, just whatever your goal is. And then you'll get the other side of the coin where you'll have guys that, again, have a lot of experience, very, very good at their jobs, but they tend to hide things a little bit from you. They tend to show you what they want you to know, but they keep a little bit back for themselves because they want to be the guy still that is seen as the go-to guy, the number one guy. They don't want anybody challenging that position they're in, and so they see people as they see a good mentee as a threat at the end of the day, and those guys can be quite harmful to people's careers. And I've had both. I've had good mentors and bad mentors, and when I started my journey as a level 3, there was someone in place that was supposed to bring me along. He was heading for retirement. He really didn't do anything for me. And the defining moment from him in my career was, I remember I had the ASNT NDT level 3 UT study guide on my desk, and I was really looking forward to getting into it. And I shared an office with this guy, and he walked out one day and just laughed under his breath and said, "Yeah, good luck with passing that." So I said to him, "Well, I'm going to pass that exam first time out just to prove you wrong." And, luckily I did. So didn't get anything from that guy in the end, but, luckily someone else came along in my career as learning to be a level 3. And, he was one of the guys that just showed me everything. If I was stuck, he'd say, "Try it this way." And they're happy to share their knowledge with you. And if you're lucky enough to have one of those people in your career, you need to, you need to keep on their good side. You need to be their friend and, keep that connection with them for as long as you can, because they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, I agree. Matt Haven, can you share some a little bit of information of your mentor whenever you were coming up, and what you do differently, and give some advice from people in the chat?
Okay. In my experience, actually, because since I have almost 4 decades, um, during my stay in Middle East, actually, we had a good amount of there was a mentor for me. I also mentored for somebody else actually to bring up him. So the company where I worked, actually, the level 3 there actually he paid more interest on me. So he had actually given me a lot of information, and with that inspiration, I also did level 3 in 94 itself, 1994. From there, actually, I started my career as a level 3. Then further onto that, actually, being away from family also, I shared my knowledge to some of my colleagues. Now, they are now actually, initially, they have no idea of going for level 3. And being shared my experience actually in all the things relevant to that, actually, train them, and always telling them some tips actually about how to approach the certain questions, certain problems and other things. So now they are now level 3, and even now when they see me, actually, they are you are my mentor. Always they tell me. Now they are also in my competition. Another company, they are competing with me. So I proud of that actually. I become proud of that actually. This is actually is always possible. And being I'm actually in a third party certification company, I've been training. I don't know how many thousands lah. So we have been doing a lot of things actually for that. But what I find the difference between the past 2 decades ago and 2 decades currently now, the the expectation of the participants, the trainees, is something different. They are interest is only to get certification, but the knowledge actually is really a secondary for them. Okay, they want to pass the examination. That is the one of the now currently now it is being prevailing. So that attitude actually I'm trying to change whoever it is. I just always tell them that knowledge is more important. Whether you pass today or the next time or different, that is different issue. But the knowledge you gain is more important. The training actually you have to focus on the knowledge, not only for just pass the examination. So this is always my always inspire my people to go in this approach, so that they easy for them to pick up the thing and then they'll be able to shine in their field. I've been seeing many people coming back to I do not remember them now, because so many decades ago I've been trained them actually, but now they can even recently one of the guy in the conference, actually international conference, he met me and then told that you are my mentor at that time. So I really after really he told him about the scenario and experience, then I could able to remember that. So in generally advice to our NDT people who are coming up now is actually they must focus on the knowledge. Actually, knowledge is more important. Is a very different testing is principle, basic fundamental principle is okay, but when you are approaching, as somebody was sharing about the different material, a different type of how to do that, what are the different accessories we have to use, different calibration techniques, all these things actually we are more important actually. And now the current level 3 is sorry to say that the people who are, because they're all directly going for level 3, especially in ASNT. So the people, the experience what we have gained those days, it is not with them. In general, I'm telling you, I just my observation. So what I want actually, the current level 3 is actually to gain the knowledge as a level 2. And many people also, even though they are after becoming level 3, they are leaving this, they are not renewing the level 2 certificates. I do not know why, because this is very important actually. As a mentor or a trainer or whoever it is, actually the level 2 knowledge is you need to continue. The certification is more important. But I'm already having level 3. Why I need to have level 2? Why need to? This is the question being asked by many of our people, because they don't want to spend money on renewing this actually other things. I do not know what is their idea behind. But without having this level 2 experience, having level 3 alone, it doesn't serve the particular interest of the stakeholders or the customers. This is in my view actually. Yes, I want to share this as a specific point of actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. The mentorship, yeah, you got to have a vast amount of knowledge to actually train the person and be the mentor correctly. I agree. Mike Turnbow, can you tell us a little bit about your mentorship and how other people in the field can be a better mentor?
Yes, sir. As far as my training, it was kind of backwards, but it worked really well. I'd been in the business working for Chicago Bridge, and then I went to Teledyne Brown Engineering, and then I ended up at TVA in construction. They wanted us to set up this training facility to train all these people. Like I said, I did about 500 myself, and there was 3 of us doing training, so you can do the math on that. And in setting that up, I'm not sure if TVA knew what we were doing, if they would have let us, because what we did is we got with the weld test shop and we made all kinds of different weld joints. We made them, caused them to fail. Porosity, lack of fusion, slag, all the diseases of welding, and then cracked some. And they figured out how to do that by putting, you put some stuff in the weld and it'll crack a little bit. So we had all these samples in there, and then we were to map those samples. I'd never seen all those flaws, because I'd worked in a fab shop. You don't see flaws in a fab shop. You see one every now and then if it's a real sloppy welder. So I'm getting, like you guys have said, 0 OJT at looking at good stuff. And so finally, when I get over here, I get to see these bad things. Now I'm going to fast forward and tell you that experience, what that did for me. As a 29-year-old, we left that part of my career, came to Chattanooga working for combustion engineering, building reactor vessels for the Ronnie Reagan carrier, the Lincoln, the Washington, and the Roosevelt. My fingerprints, when you hear about those carriers going around the world doing things, remember Mike Turnbull's fingerprints are on those reactors. What happened was one of the welders got out of the procedure, put too much heat into a safe end, a stainless steel safe end that welds to a reactor nozzle, which is carbon steel. Long story short, the shop guys found something. They called me out. I looked at it. Said, this thing's broke like glass. And the management, the production people went nuts. I'm sitting here, the 29-year-old, ain't been there for about a year and a half, telling them that this thing's broke, you're going to have to cut them off. No, you're going to have to cut all 4 of them off. All 4 of them going around that reactor vessel had the same disease. I'll make this story short. The admiral of NAVC came to Chattanooga because I'm a NAVC examiner, been to Pittsburgh, got the card. And the word got to him that this boy's getting pressure. And so he comes down, stands by me when they cut that weld out. Can you imagine this? They do a bolt sample. They got this machine that does a nice little scoop out of the weld. The guys put the penetrant in it, cleaned it, let it dry, and sprayed the developer on it. And out came veins of red dye. It took about 5 to 10 minutes before I was able to breathe again. I turned blue, purple. I don't know why I didn't pass out. I should have. So that's my story on mentoring. I learned the backwards way because in my experience growing my own group inside TV, I knew that, and we did it different. We brought young folks in, trainees. We put them with mentors, guys that were level 3 in the group that follow them around for the time period. No, they just didn't haul coupling. They did some of the things you guys said. I say if you're calibrating, you make him calibrate and you watch him. So we even wrote a procedure on how to do it so everybody would do it the same. And then I'm going to fast forward to workforce. We got a serious workforce issue happening right now in this country. I know y'all all know that, and around the world probably. I think it is around the world. Everybody's thinking they're going to build these little modular nuclear units just about everywhere. Who's going to build them, and can they build them all at the same time? The answer is no. We experienced this in the 70s when I was in there. So now then, if you take the time away, Don, like you said a few minutes ago, if you take the time away, like I was speaking, and you give a qual card with all these things you demonstrate, you come out the other end and you can actually demonstrate on a practical test. Well, the practical test we have to take now is what? It's a block with a couple of flaws in it. I know you can see in TC1 or CP189, you can get away with a block with a couple of flaws in it. How many flaws are there out there? There's a whole lot more than 2, and none of them look the same. So how in the world could you expect a guy that demonstrates 2 flaws that he needs to have a driver's license to go drive a semi truck? You know, that ain't going to happen. Well, yeah, it does. Happens every day. It's just, we've got to fix that. I think we've got that. I've told you this. ASME worked with us in the late 2000s and into the last 5 years to build this standard. And then we've hitched up with National Board of Boiler Inspectors. I don't know if you know who they are or not, but they're the guys that makes ASME legal to use in the states. They're the dudes, the regulatory type of folks, and do training for authorized inspectors and all kinds of things around the world. They are going to be our certifying body. So we got a mechanism in place that's going to happen between now and Christmas. And it's already demonstrated it worked. Like I said, we've run our people through that. They go over to EPRI, they make 85, 90%. This whole process, Daniel, requires that each mentor, a person to be a mentor, has to go through our training, online training. You've got to go through our online training. Nobody flies anywhere. We've got it developed. We can stick it on the web somewhere, take the training and do a little test. And sign a few papers, non-disclosures. I got ethics. I'm going to sign my ethics document. I'm going to be a good mentor, and we're going to get all that done before we turn these guys loose.
Sounds great. I think now we can turn to the chat and answer a couple of questions. We'll just do one at a time. We don't need everybody to answer the same question. So I guess, Don, I'll ask you real fast. Somebody asked in the chat, how can I build a brighter NDT career field? You have your own training system and it's very successful. What can you recommend for a step out process for somebody who's already in the field that probably just wants to know more, learn more, and be a better mentor?
Invest in yourself. When I went up to the North Slope of Alaska as a radiographer, that's what the company needed. So that's what I did. They wanted to be on night shift. So that's what I did. I'm not a night shift guy, but I did it for over a year. And then after I was in there, got a few certs, they didn't need a radiation safety officer. They didn't need a source retrieval guy. But I took the time and my own money and went to those classes on my off time. And I invested in myself. I didn't wait for the company to invest in me, because usually they're going to spend what they need to spend to fill a position that they need. I get it. Business is not cheap. It's not easy. That's a whole nother conversation. But if you want to have a successful NDT career, it's not that hard. Invest in yourself. Show up for work on time. Do the extra work that needs to be done and have a great work ethic. There's plenty of room, like Michael was just saying, for growth. We need people. And good people get moved up quickly. So I went and got my RSO training, and then I got my source retrieval certificate. Then I got an API 570, and then I got an API 653. And then they looked at me and said, we better give this guy a promotion or someone else will. And then they moved me into the API realm and moved me up, right? But they were like, someone's going to pay him because look at, he's motivated. He wants to learn. He's proving himself. So it's up to you. You know, when I tell people that come to our school, we've placed over 600 people in the NDT industry through my school, and we've provided over 700,000 hours of training to the NDT community for my school. But I tell these graduates prior to graduating, prior to coming to my school, hey, yeah, is there good money to be made? Absolutely, if you're willing to work. Is there upside? Can you become a corrosion specialist? Go into API, CWI? Is there all these things that you can move forward to? Yes, that's true. But there's a catch. You have to work hard. You have to care. You have to do it. You have to show up. And so that's what I'm saying is it's out there, people. If you want to make your career better, then care about it and nurture it and invest in yourself. And that's my answer to how I'm going to end with this. Is amazing meeting all of you guys. I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out to me. Michael, I'd love to talk about any OJT stuff and you know, like to meet with anybody. But I've got to go because I have a meeting that I can't miss. And I thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. A lot of great insight here, and I hope it helped people with some clarity.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, Donald.
Hi, Daniel. There is one question from Mustafa Muhammad in the chat I find actually. I just want to answer this question. The question was he raised actually is I am currently an undergraduate student in metallurgical engineering and I have obtained my level 2 NDT certification. What should be my next step to further advance my career in the NDT field? My answer to this gentleman, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed, is actually, since he is having a metallurgical background, he's the right person to go for a level 3 examination. So I do not know, he's not mentioned actually what method. Better to, if it is UT, RT or something like that, he has to a little bit more explore the possibilities of getting more knowledge related to the level 3. And he has to gain that actually within next 2 years, he has to gain the minimum 4 methods, he has to get the level 3. Apart from that, so he has to set up a career plan actually for the next 5 years. Within the next 2 years, he has to gain at least this level 2 being a level 2, and he has to gain the level 3. And he has to keep in his eye actually parallelly on the welding as well as the process. I don't know what his industry he is. In case if he's in process industry, so he must have API certifications. So API certification and welding certificate with level 3. In the next 5 years, he will be in the highest position. Yeah, that's my just how to further advance his career in NDT field. That will be his climax or uppermost hand actually in this profession. That's my answer to him. Thank you.
Sounds great. Nathan Bate, I guess this one's for you. In terms of wage pay, which certification, ASNT, TC1A, PC1, CS, WIP, ISO, offers better pay? Do you have any insight on which one pays more? Do you feel like it's all kind of relevant? And if it's more difficult to get into, I feel like it would have a higher pay rate based on the lack of people being able to actually pass that certification. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, in terms of pay rates, it's typically not, I don't think, affected too much by the certification scheme you're under. Different industries may offer slight disparities in pay, but it all depends on your experience, your level of certification, what methods you hold. So typically, if you're someone who has experience in advanced ultrasonics or advanced radiography, your skills might be in higher demand than somebody who is, 2-3 years in industry, has some surface inspection goals. I'm not saying that one guy is worth more than the other in terms of what they bring to the workforce, but the more experienced you are, typically your salary and pay should increase based upon that. So yeah, it depends on your industry, the methods you hold, your experience. It's difficult to say that one certification scheme offers better pay incentives than another. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the second part of this question we can all agree on. And does it make sense to pay more based on different type of NDT certifications? Yes.
Yeah, of course.
NDT technicians either go the ultrasonic, eddy current, or RT route. That's going to be your main bread and butter right there. And naturally, those are going to pay more than a PT certification would be. So I think we can all agree on that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Turnbow, what is your prediction about the impact of the ASNT 9712 certification compared to the long-term established ISO 9712 certification? How do you think it will shape the market?
Well, they had the ACCP. I'm still scratching my head, and I can't find anybody explain to me why they changed that, because I was involved back when we put that thing together, which was 9712. It was built for 9712. It was also built to do the everything with ASME we just did. It was built for that. And we tried to work with them on that, and that just didn't work out. So there's some things going on there that I can't explain. So I'll say this. In all the years I've been involved, I've always been involved in one of their certification processes, if not all of them. And I'm in the standards, the CP 189 standards group now, obviously, because that nuclear is the only one that uses CP 189 pretty much. So to answer your question, 9712, there's not another scheme on the planet that uses 9712 as its title. So there's something going on there to send a message that we 9712. 9712 in Europe is well established. It's like everybody's talked about. It's got the sectors in it. It delivers better. Even in our studies, it has a problem too on the time thing, and maybe not necessarily getting people all the way where they need to go, but it's on the journey. So I give 9712 big credit for being on the journey. So in America, we always ask this. I've been on the board of directors 4 or 5 times and went through the chairs. We always ask who uses 9712 in the United States. There might be a few people raise their hand and says, I have a purchase order. I have 1 purchase order. I have 2 purchase orders. I have some purchase orders. What code requires it in the United States? There ain't one. I don't know it, even to this day. I'm beside myself on why this is a big deal with them right now, because they already had it and then they changed it. So I'm just going to bow out, Daniel, and say, I don't know how to answer your question.
Fair enough. This next question by my buddy Liam, he reached out. He said, how are the qualification cards that you mentioned earlier going to set themselves apart from the central organization certification body, CGSB, BINDT, ASNT, and an employer certifications? CGSB and BINDT have some of the highest standards I've seen in the certification requirements for the examination to be documented. And yeah, we can start with that part of the question, and then there's one more after that for you, Michael.
Well, I'll tell you what, we've worked on this a long time, obviously. It was hard for us to shift the ship 1 degree. You know what I mean by that. It takes about 30 miles for a big, huge ship. So we finally made the curve and got this done. MTPTURT, qual cards are done. Job task analysis, that's all part of this. That's done. Another time to explain all this to these folks another day, maybe we can do this again. But to answer this question, the codes are looking at shifting to making this one an optional requirement. I don't have to have a written practice. I don't have to do the hours. I can do TC, CP, or this one. This one cuts the time in half. ISO, I'm still connected to the ISO 9712 folks, and they're hot to trot over the qual card. So they're saying, wow, out of all this Andy stuff you did, that one makes sense. Of course it does. Of course it does. Everybody's we're starting to tell this about is getting excited about the qual card. CGSB, a PCN, CoFran, DGZFP, all the societies of the world. I've been going to their meetings, the international meetings, the world conferences and all that. We're all getting old together. Some of us don't show up no more, but my plan is, and they know this, and they've been to my meetings that we built this thing, is we're going to figure out a way, is the goal is for everybody to get to enjoy this piece of the pie, one way or another.
Yeah, sounds great. And
one other thing to say, I almost said it a while ago, to put icing on the cake on this. The reason it's becoming so important to everybody, they realize the time-based thing we've used all these years and put Band-Aids on it, just really never did work since 1968. And the fact that we got a workforce issue now, I do not need a year or not 800 or 900 hours to create somebody when I can do it in a month. I may have to dedicate a lot of time to this person, but at the end of a month, they're making me money. I'm putting them on a job, and I know they know what they're doing. I'll rest my case right there.
Fair enough. Second part of this question, I think Nathan can answer this as well, is if you're familiar with the CR system, the self-contained area radiography with the CR, some barriers are 2 to 5 feet from a selenium source. Selenium's relatively small source. Not sure if the contractors down there are using this. Would be interested to know if this is something you guys are exploring. And Michael, you from a nuclear standpoint as well, you can kind of shed some light on what you are doing. But Nathan, do you have anything to say about the self-contained area radiography with the CR source or CR plates?
I struggle with that one a little bit, if I'm honest. I'm not really an expert in radiation safety, so I'll pass that one over if anyone's thinks they've got a sort of better stance on that, if that's okay.
Be glad to. The CR. Okay, when I was still working in the TVA, of course, that's where I got my experience with CR. And on the early days when it came out, we realized that we could use the CR plates on boiler tubes and on piping. You couldn't bend them back in those days, but now they're making them so you can actually bend them and they'll shape the CR plates. So the technology's got even better to today. But back to the real big advantage is, like I said earlier, you might have a shot that's 5-10 minutes with iridium with regular film. Well, you've got this one's like 30 seconds. And you don't need iridium 100 curies. You need 3 curies or 5 curies or maybe 10 curies. So now all of a sudden, everything comes in real close. Or if you got an X-ray tube, same thing, everything comes down. I can make a shot in seconds compared to minutes, and I don't have to rope off hardly anything. People's walking around us, and the thing's shooting, and we're surveying it. And if the NRC or the state people walk up, they look at it and they say, you're safe, because the 2MR line is being maintained, right? 2MR. That's the advantages of CR. And the other big advantage, no chemicals, no processing film, absolutely no chemicals. Holy cow. The environmentalists, I don't know why they don't come up and hug me when I go downtown Chattanooga. I don't ever get a hug, but I'm looking forward to one of them dudes give me a hug.
Sounds great. Matt Haven, this question will be a great one for you. I work in the oil and gas industry. How do you learn to navigate through technical standards? Because there's multiple and it can be overwhelming at times. How do you find out which standards really align with what you're doing when there's so many? And how do you navigate those personally?
Okay. Especially since you have already identified the oil and gas industry, you must know before you go for the technical standards, you must know what is the job actually, what is being tested. In the knowledge of the product and the component, how it affects the quality, how it affects the functional part of it. That part actually, if you know, then easy for us to verify the standards. The understanding is the most important, the standard. So the purpose of what you want to review in the technical standards and the interpretation part. So to interpret actually the most important accurately, it's everything in English. Okay, that is the reading a technical standard needs a little bit knowledge about the testing as well as the material and the function part of it. Then it gives a clear idea, contrast actually in your mind to make a decision. Otherwise, simply reading as an English, it will not be effective. So first of all, you have to glance through the document, and you must also understand the situation where you have to apply what is that actually. Then that part actually you make a clear understanding on that, and you can make it a little bit accurately interpret the particular thing. So that's what I mean, that navigate through the technical standards.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go back with you, Nathan. This has been brought up multiple times, and I feel like this is a great conversation. Can someone explain the difference between an NDT engineer and an NDT technicians? Because there hasn't really been a certification process for it, qualifications. How do you differentiate that, and what actually makes an NDT engineer, or do you think that's just a type of position?
Yeah, there is a little bit of overlap in terminology I find between, particularly between technician and engineer. A lot of guys who maybe experienced level twos would call themselves an NDT engineer, or their job role will be NDT engineer. I don't think there's really a definitive answer, but I can refer to the apprenticeship schemes that BINDT run, and they run three. One is an NDT operator, one is an NDT technician, one is NDT engineer. So an operator is typically looking at somebody who operates at level one, so they're operating under supervision. The NDT technician is someone who's operating independently as a level two. So part of that apprenticeship is to obtain a certain amount of level two methods, including a volumetric. The NDT engineer apprenticeship is aimed at somebody who is looking to become a level three, essentially. So that's part of that apprenticeship is completing your university degree or college degree. That's part of that. So you can kind of loosely overlap them between level 1, 2, and 3 in terms of operator, technician, and engineer. But I don't think there's anything in any standard anywhere that clearly defines the three. But you know, as some loose guidance there in terms of what might differentiate between them.
Yeah, I agree. My interpretation of an NDT engineer is someone who's really changing up the game on it. That's making, different flaw samples, different techniques, and, trying to improve and grow the community on it, not just a level 3. You got to have a broader range of NDT to be able to apply the right methods and changing up the game. And if you have an issue that you can't really phase array, like what can you do to build a tool, just to try to make that happen. So that's my interpretation of it. But yeah, there's no certification process on it. Matt Haven and Turnbow, do y'all have any insight on an NDT engineer?
Yeah, maybe I just want to add one point actually here. In Singapore, actually, in the process industry, the NDT engineer role and task is a little bit different than the NDT level 3 or something like that. So the NDT technician, as referred by Nathan, actually he is they are going to perform the test, and then based on the product and the things, whatever they test, they'll be giving the report or other things, they evaluate and then give that. But the NDT engineer, for example, in process industry, the most important thing actually what they have to look into it, they're all, I think I have seen most of them, they're all qualified as API 571. So that means the various types of discontinuities are being occurring in that, and what is the point of that actually, how to evaluate this result, whether it affects or how long it will take, and what would be the range or something like that, they can decide. Okay, it is in process industry. If you go to the construction industry, so they need to have a little bit on design of the structure. Okay, the fabrication and erection, the technology, they should have something idea, so that the test results, how they are going to interpret and how it affect, and what should be the even though there are some specific standards are there which dictates the acceptance criteria, these NDT engineers develop actually, and then they're predicting the things that they can do. They change the design also if really if needs. Okay, because of the situation. For example, certain profile of welds, it's always prone to have some certain discontinuities. When you are doing 2 or 3 times repair, actually also it's of no point. Actually, there is a limitation is there. For certain materials, you are not supposed to do more than 2 times repair. So in such situation, this NDT engineer role is become important, and advise the committee to explore such possibility of how to retain such wells actually, without having a further failure mechanism or damage. The failure mechanism is the study of that is more important as an engineer. That's what I just have been observing in the industry here in Singapore. Actually, the people are having a little bit more knowledge, wide knowledge about the intentional function of the particular component.
Yeah, I agree. Turnbow, what you got for it?
Yes, sir. Real quick here. In my industry, of course, our first generation nukes, we designed them and built them and never thought about design for accessibility for inspection. And we spent millions and millions in trying to build manipulators and robots and crawlers and all kinds of things to get to places you can't get to. And then the second group came along and we did it again. We screwed up twice and we still built some stuff we couldn't get to. Point being is the NDE engineer, I agree with everything that Matt Havens just said, and plus this, their job is to sit there on the drawing board with the designers and say, no, don't do that again. Don't do that again. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you, about 10 years ago, we had the workforce thing that we're having again now. And TVA and all the nuclear people was trying to figure out how they was going to not keep stealing. We'd get in outages and people start stealing people from us by paying them $1 more an hour, right? That's how that works. So a guy get halfway through an outage and walk out. And so we built a college with the college here in Chattanooga State Community College. We got with them and we started an NDE program. Today, that NDE program is flourishing. They've placed everybody they graduate. There is, unless of course they have a bad drug test, you lose some that way. And then not too long ago, Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology is the group that accredits all engineering schools across this country, including 2-year colleges with associates. Chat State just got it a little bit ago, got its ABET accreditation for its NDE program, the only one in the country. And just so Nathan knows, Chat State's been negotiating and they've traveled to the UK. And because the UK has an engineering program, we have an associate's program. We want to go to a BS engineering program. So those 2 countries is working together right now. And there's plans to get to India and to get to South Korea and in Asia and other places, because they seem to be aggressive at addressing these issues. And our college here wants to learn everything they can about how to do it right.
Yeah, sounds good. So we got one last question and we'll try to make it quick. We'll try to give everybody, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just real quick, just so we can help people out in the chat also. What common mistakes do NDT professionals make to limit their growth? We'll start with you, Nathan.
I think the one thing you've got to avoid is I think Don made this point earlier, is you got to show up, you got to be there, you got to get your head in the game, you've got to want to be hungry. There's a lot of scope, a lot of work out there. There's a shortage of people to do it. The first thing you got to have is that mindset. If you've not got a positive mindset and willing to learn, you're not going to succeed in this industry. It will just leave you behind. So yeah, show up.
Yeah, Mad Haven.
Regarding this, I think the common professionals make that limit their growth in the UK, they have been asking. Because actually, I was not aware of that about the UK region. But in general, in this, generally people, entity professionals, the common mistake, what they do actually is they, because it depends upon the amount of job they have been doing in a particular duration of time. Okay. If they are supposed to do the whole day, then the consistency and is very difficult for them to sustain their the performance, actually the efficiency of the performance throughout the duration of the period. So there comes actually, especially in this corrosion mapping. Corrosion mapping, actually they need to be very focused on the movement of the transducer, and the way in which they handle the transducer also very important in picking up certain very thinnest portion of the corrosion area. So there comes actually the meticulous focusing and movement of the scanning of the probe or transducer is very important, which actually sometimes they miss actually, and they give the general thickness. But whereas it fails actually, it's in shorter period. So there comes actually the most of them, because if you happen to see in the process industry, I can say that 50 to 60% of the work is only monitoring the thickness. But earlier days, in the 2 decades ago and all, people have been doing only the dive with the D meter and the UTG and other things. But now all the PAUT corrosion mapping has come. So they could able to have a grid line and then have an Excel table with a variety of readings actually in a particular small area. So the NDT experts or people who are interpreting the data, they could able to see that the salient features of the minimum thinnest area where it is and what should be the salvage has to be done. So there comes actually the general mistake people have been committing in general, especially in the UT part. Radiography part actually, we always, because nowadays it's turning towards digitization, digital radiography is there. So there actually the processing of the image is most important. Even though they made the CNR and the SRS, the spatial resolution, all these things matter, but the general certain type of discontent is what is being expected. They need to explore on that particular area, and then they need to do that. Those things are all actually still, it's under process of development, and it purely depends upon the what is that called, software nature. But in general, the UTG people, the monitoring actually is more important. That's the general mistake people have been doing. And another test method, generally PT and MT, which actually a blunder mistake people try to do that, especially during shutdown time. I happened to notice once actually, they use actually empty white contrast paint in place of a developer in PT, penetrant testing, which is very blunder mistake. And then we removed that guy from that particular project. It was one of the blunder mistakes. They say, I do not have the stock, stop the work. There is no other question of compromisation on this quality, right? The purpose of applying this magnetic contrast paint in place of developer, who has given this knowledge, or who has taken these are the blunder mistake people have been doing in that. So we need to, as an area development people or expertise in this field, actually we need to look into these aspects, and then we have to monitor, and then we have to put it in place in proper procedure, right? So I think these are all the general things just want to highlight. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Mike Turnbow, real quick, what
Real
do
quick,
you feel is yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you got to love what you're doing. Once you get that past that, you throw yourself at everything there is going on. If you're not getting fed fast enough from the company because this OJT thing's coming kind of slow, you can always go find it yourself. I know you can. And once you get past all that, volunteer for all kinds of new projects. Jump in there and say, I want this, I want that. You want it all. You want it all. And at the end of the day, be a leader and you will go straight up.
I agree. Um, well, that's the end of this panel. If you look in the chat, there's a Google Forms that people can fill out. So, I mean, feedback is always welcome. We can figure out who we want to bring up here on the next one, bring some people back, change out the moderator if somebody else wants to hear somebody else's questions. And, you know, if y'all could fill out that form, that'd be, you know, most helpful. And I appreciate y'all's time and everybody in the chat for the questions and joining us and diving into these panels. If anybody from OnestopNDT has anything else to say, then we can close with that.
Yes, that brings us to the end of our panel discussion. And what an insightful journey it's been. Today's conversation has been packed with clarity, guidance, and real-world experience. A heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists, Mr. Madhavan Krishnamurthy, Mr. Donald Booth, Mr. Michael Turnbow, and Mr. Nathan Bate for sharing their deep insights, global perspectives, and most importantly, their time. A special thanks to our moderator, Daniel Hogue. You nailed it, man, for expertly navigating this discussion and keeping it meaningful and actionable for everyone attending. And to our audience, thank you for joining us, asking such thoughtful questions and making this an interactive and valuable session. We hope you leave today with more direction and confidence. So stay tuned for more editions of NDT Talks. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep testing. Take care. Have a good day. Thank you, gentlemen.